Good morning, gentlemen of grade 11. Happy to be with you again, hoping and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are in good health, enjoying your time at home and doing your job and completing your virtual learning classes and so on. For today, we'll go on with growing up Asian America. Hopefully, inshallah, this will be the last part of this. I don't want to get you bored out of this. Before we start, we need to read this question. Compare Noda's reaction to her uncle's anger to her grandparents at the time of the war. We mentioned in our last class that when she went to visit her uncle at the farm and she was not able to drive in the sandy land, her uncle shouted at her and showed his anger and furious, and simply she said, "I am sorry, uncle." Out of this part, we compared her situation with his submission and her apology to what her grandparents did at the time of the war when they accepted to be in the camps as a kind of cooperation to the American society. We'll start at lines 121. When she went to the farm, she said, "During the several years that follow, I learned about the people and the place and much more about what has happened in California." California village where my parents grew up. The essay, which is the family name, our grandparents made the settlement in the desert. Their first crops were eaten by rabbits and ravaged by insects. The land was so barren that men walking from house to house sometimes got lost. Women came here too. They bore children at 114-degree heat, then carried the babies with them into the fields to nurse when they reached at the end of each row of grapes or other struck farm crops. I think here we may have some kind of questions. The questions I expect will be about the difficulty the people had, the early settlers. So yes, the early settlers were hard-working, persistent. True or false? Based on this paragraph. Yes, I think it's true. So, if the answer is true, cite words and phrases to support your inference. Now, if you claim that these people were hard-working at the time, persistent, find words. I myself will start with this word, desert. Yes, desert. And go to the word barren land. Crops were eaten by rabbits, ravaged by insects. Go to temperature. While women carried their babies on their back, went to the fields to nurse them. So still, it looks like the community of the Japanese people at the American society started their life at struggle since the very beginning. That's why I think when we discussed the last page, she mentioned here that they are hard what? Hard working. I think we've had the word hard working. Determined, yes. They are determined and they are motivated, yes. And they think hard working, but where to find it? This needs time. Find it yourselves. Okay, let's go on. I had no idea what it meant to buy this kind of land and makes it grow green, or how, when the war came, there was no space at all for the subtlety of being who we are, Japanese Americans, either or was the way. I hadn't understood that people were literally afraid for their lives then, that their money had been frozen in banks, that there was a 5-mile travel limit, that when the early evening curfew came and they were inside their houses, some of them watched helplessly as people they knew went into their barns to steal their belongings. The police were patrolling the road, interested only in the violator, the curfew. Okay, If you consider this paragraph, we may have a kind of structure in this. I had no idea what it meant to buy this kind of land and make it grow green. Sentence 1. Or how when the war came, there was no space at all for the subtlety of being who we were, Japanese Americans. Sentence 3. Either or what the way. Sentence 3. I hadn't understood that people were literally afraid of their life then, that the money blah 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 until the sentence ends at the word belongings. Okay, I think we have a question here too. The question is, considering these sentences, read the 4 sentences of the paragraph. I had no idea. That's in lines 130, 137. How do these 4 sentences compare to each other? And the second question is, what effect that does using the short oh, hey. Let's consider the question first. Sorry. Here are the sentences. I brought them here in a quiet area for you. Sentence 1. I had no idea what it meant to buy this kind of land and make it grow green. Sentence 1. Or how when the war came, there was no space at all for the subtlety of being who we are, Japanese Americans. Sentence 2. Either or what the way. Sentence 3. On sentence 4, I hadn't understood that la 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 la. Okay, now, first sentence is, yes, what's it? Is it simple sentence? Or what? What sentence? It's a long sentence. It's a long sentence. Second one is, it's a long sentence. Sentence 3 is, surprise, it's a simple sentence. And go to sentence 4. It is a long, complex sentence. Sentence 1, I had no idea what it meant to buy, a long idea. Sentence 2, long idea. Then simple sentence. Then a very long sentence. Okay, do we have any kind of effect here? Yes. The very long sentence is long one, the second one. You can read it and you feel fluency in reading, fluency in ideas. The ideas of the author, the words are going on, flowing inside. But suddenly you need to abruptly stop. The simple sentence makes you suddenly stop. And then you go to a more detailed sentence, a complex sentence. Can you notice something in this fourth one? Yes, in this fourth one. That people were, that their money, that there was, that when there. So what does the using of many that gives us? It gives us connections. The ideas are all connections. I would like to remind you here, when we studied the Declaration of Independence written by Jefferson, he used many that at the very introductory. That. So that means makes the connections, makes ideas related together. Great. So when we move on here, she turns to, now I have a place here, referring to the United States, on the East Coast, where our neighbors is so much a part of our family that my mother never passes her house at night without glancing at the lights to see if she is home and safe, where my parents have hauled hundreds of pounds of rocks from fields and arduously planted Christmas trees, and also blueberries, lilacs, asparagus, and crab apples, where my father still dreams of angeling a stream to a new bed so that he can dig a pond into the field and fill it with water and fish. The neighbors already came for their Christmas tree, he asks in December. Did they like it? Did they feel it? So the man planted Christmas trees to offer them to his neighbors. And what did this indicate? That the people began to mix within the society. They began to find a place. Again, they began to accept the American society, and I think the American society began to accept them. So when we move to this part also, I have a place on the west coast where my relatives still farm, where I heard the stories of foods and backbiting, and where I saw that people survived and flourished because fundamentally they trusted and relied upon one another. A death in the family is not just a death in the family, it's a death in the community. I saw people help each other with money, materials, labor, attention, and time. I saw men gather once a year without fail to clean the grounds of a 90-year-old woman who had helped the community before, during, and after the war. I saw her remembering them with birthday cards sent to each of their children. Do we have questions here? Okay, let's consider. I have a place on the west. So I have a place gives a kind of possession. Read the paragraph. I have a place. How are the sentences similar to each other? Okay. What kind of effect does this parallel structure create? Let's go to the text. Here, yes. Not this one, of course. But this one. So now I made things easier for you, my friends. You can find now how the structure is done. Yes, there is a kind of repetition, the parallel structure. The author repeats, I saw, I saw, I saw. What effect does it have? Yes, connection and authenticity. The author, being part, is a witness. Yes, a witness. She said, I saw that people, I saw men, I saw here. And by the way, people, men, referring to the human factor. So all are people. And she saw him doing this. I saw that people survived. I saw people help. I saw men, still people, gather. I saw her, I mean the woman. So here, the woman is a part, people is a part, men, and all belong to the same kind, so different levels, whether on the level of the individual, the woman, or the level of a group, which is men, and the level of the community, which is all people, including all ages and all gender. So here, the community now succeeded to be one part, one unity, one hand. Great. The last two lines in this section and the whole selection, I come from a people with a long memory and a distinctive grace. We live our things and we are Americans, Japanese Americans. The question here is that. Lines 167, 168. Read the last paragraph and how do the pronouns change? How do the pronouns change and what does the change imply? Okay, the first sentence had the first singular pronoun I. The second two sentences had the pronoun we. We. Okay. Also, it's first singular but plural. First singular pronoun, which is we. Moving from individual again to the idea of the group refers to the connection that these people are deeply connected now and they succeeded. Whether, or I mean, oh yes, okay, they have a different identity as being Japanese, but now this part of Japanese is not only a mere Japanese, it's a Japanese Americans. And we are Americans, Japanese American. That will be the end of this reading selection at all. And inshallah, tomorrow we start a new reading selection. And thank you. I hope you do your e-homework. And if you have any questions, please, further questions, do not hesitate to contact me. See you and goodbye.